Betting is and futures for tonight's action. Bettor Sports Betting wants to know what picks you're playing tonight. Tell us in the live chat on YouTube, Twitter, and the Bettor Sports Network app. This is Bettor Sports Betting with Fantasy Alarm's Dan Servodidio.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome in here to the Bettor Sports Betting Show on Bettor Sports Network, Fantasy Alarm, YouTube, Twitter, the BSN app. Wherever you're watching today, thanks for joining in here on a Tuesday afternoon. Got Jon Impemba with me here today. What's up, John? We got a crazy Aaron Rodgers injury to discuss, but plenty of stuff to talk about on today's show. What's up?
Yeah, I mean, obviously super disappointing the way that went down for Rodgers. I think everybody was very excited to see how this is going to play out for the Jets, if Rodgers is going to be able to take a second team and elevate them to being, a legitimate contender in a new conference, in a new division after all those years, in Green Bay, sort of having the Brett Favre parallels and all those things as well, going to New York after leaving Green Bay and all this stuff. And then boom, 4 plays in, torn Achilles. And at his age, I mean, he might be done, right? It just might be it for Aaron Rodgers here. So it's pretty upsetting, but they managed to pull out a win still. That defense looks as advertised, which is still scary enough to think that, the way Breece Hall looked with Dalvin Cook and then that defense, they can manage games there and limit turnovers from Zach Wilson maybe and still, be a team that could flirt with a playoff spot. I'm not ready to write them off yet completely. I know we'll talk about some of the, the Vegas odds and how they dropped for the Jets following that injury. But, I think that there's still worthy plays there on New York today when it comes to either win totals or, their odds to make the playoffs even. Zach Wilson, for as bad as he has looked and how shaky he looked, I mean, he wasn't ready to be the starting guy yesterday, and he faced the tough Buffalo Bills defense. So, I'm given what I saw from the running game and that defense, I still think the Jets are a team that, could make a little bit of noise and not be a pushover like many kind of expect they are now.
Yeah, listen, they still got a top 5 defense that, obviously frustrated Josh Allen last night, forced a bunch of turnovers, kept them in the game to even give them a chance. And, in overtime, forced a 3-and-out to force that punt for the punt return touchdown to win it. So, they still have tons of talent. And we'll see if they stick with Zach Wilson going forward. There's obviously rumors out there they could bring in somebody else. But, I feel like they have confidence in Wilson. It seems like maybe he's picked up a couple things from Rodgers. But it was slow early going for him. But you got to give him credit for the job he did. This could have easily, been a, throwing 2 picks, fumbling, not been able to drive the team down. I mean, Breece Hall was a stud for them last night, breaking off multiple long runs. Like, if they don't have him and Dalvin Cook to lean on in this offense, maybe it'd be a different vibe, different story. But our producer Adam Bernard is a Jets guy, and he made this graphic that you just saw flash up there of just kind of 4 snaps for Rodgers, 11 minutes of real time, one awesome intro tunnel run, and then that was it. And Jets fans last night, you could see just what their stages of grief. Jets fans are currently in the bargaining phase, in the stages of denial, the stages of grief here. Listen, you get a win last night. It's awesome. On yesterday's show, me and Howard gave out some bets and picks for the game. And the under thankfully stayed true, even though we went to overtime. It looked a little possible shaky, but the under stayed true. Thankful to, because of the Rodgers injury, that helped, but the Bills offense didn't do much of anything. But the Jets money line, if you were back in the Jets money line, you probably thought it was done in that, as soon as Rodgers went down, and obviously that came through in a big way.
I had the Jets plus 2.5. And then Fanatics actually had the boosted prop of Aaron Rodgers throwing a touchdown and the Jets win at plus 200. So I was in on that. Thankfully, they did the injury refund on that one on the Fanatics account there. But I still had Jets plus 2.5 everywhere. So
Nice.
I was a little worried, obviously, when they tie that game and then they allow they go to overtime. Like, oh, here we go. Like, they're going to lose. They lost the snap. I'm not going to cover the points, but fortunately, it all worked out.
Yeah, I thankfully I stayed away from any live betting during the game when Rodgers went down. I was just gonna stick with like, all right, I got my pregame under riding, some player props, but easily like if people jumped on the Bills, live spread, because I know it like jumped up to -7.5, it was Bills heavily favored as soon as Rodgers went down, and then we see the reports of possible Achilles, he's questionable return, and then he's not returning. So the odds were shifting. And if you jumped on, even if you jumped on a live Jets money line, that's very profitable. If you did, definitely hit us up in the chat, because that's awesome to see some people win those. Did you see the Wisconsin sports bar that got screwed over in this whole thing?
Free beer if the Jets lose or something like that.
Yeah.
Everyone
started buying drinks. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they didn't get screwed over. The people getting drinks got screwed over. You got to assume some risk in all that stuff. So, but you wrote up a article over on fantasyalarm.com just breaking down the injury impact for the Jets, fantasy, but also for betting. Looking at, the new Jets odds to win the Super Bowl, to win the division, their win total, all that stuff. And you can see here on the screen just how the odds have changed. Yeah. You said you might be bullish going forward on just like some of these expectations for the Jets. I mean, so before last night's game, it was basically Jets second behind the Bills to win that division. The Dolphins also close behind, but afterwards, you can see now it's basically Dolphins, Bills to win the division, with the Jets fairly distant third now at plus 500 odds. But you think they could actually compete in the division, huh?
No, I don't think it's a division. I was actually more looking at their postseason odds there. It's at plus 215 now, was minus 150. I mean, given the schedule and the client, how things are now, you kind of just have to be a 500-ish team to compete for that extra wild card spot that they put in there. So if that defense is as good as it looked yesterday, and that running game with Breece Hall and Dalvin Cook is as good as it looks like, they don't need Zach Wilson to be Aaron Rodgers to compete. Now, the one thing I've said all along about the AFC East and the NFC East as well is that they play each other, which means their schedules are pretty rough. And the fact that the Jets had Aaron Rodgers, they have a lot of these like primetime tough games to play, and now it's going to be Zach Wilson. But you know what? Zach Wilson, again, wasn't really prepared to play in that game. He was, sort of. You're always prepared as the backup, but there wasn't a thought in that man's mind, I don't think, this year that he thought he was going to play a football game with Aaron Rodgers in New York. But he's at least had the benefit of practicing with him, learning from him, and all of those there. So he was the number 2 overall pick 3 years ago. Some turmoil there, a different system, and kind of all throwing things together. Who's to say that he doesn't become just a serviceable game manager? We've seen Mark Sanchez, in the Rex Ryan days with a really good running game and a really good defense. That team, went to the playoffs. So I'm not ready to count them out yet. And all the odds dumped on them so heavily. Their win total went down to 8.5. It was at 9.5 before the season. They went 1-0, and now it's down to 8.5. And you're getting plus odds on the over. So it was minus 155 on under 8.5 now, and they're already 1-0. So if you want, again, take a bet on the over win total for the season, take a bet on them to make the playoffs. There's some plus money there for you if you don't mind a little bit of the risk.
Yeah, and week 2 they go on the road to Dallas, but then they get the Patriots at home, they get the Chiefs at home, then they go to the Broncos next week and the week after, and then the Eagles at home. So I mean, there are some tough games coming up.
Oh, for sure.
So in this short term, maybe they are losing a few, but overall this season, they could turn it around. And again, the defense is going to hold them in games.
That's how I'm looking at it. That defense, they came out and talked their talk all going into that week 1. Saw some quotes, they're going to be the 86 Bears. They're going to be the 2000, Baltimore Ravens. 3 interceptions, a forced fumble, and some sacks on Josh Allen. Yeah, that defense stood up and was exactly what they said they would be. So if that's the case, I'm worried for any team that has to go play the Jets now this season.
Yeah, and you mentioned it's against Josh Allen. This wasn't against like Russell Wilson
Yeah,
or
Kenny Pickett. It wasn't Kenny
Kenny
Pickett.
Pickett.
So it's
They know they
Josh
could do
Allen.
this against one of the best quarterbacks and one of the best teams in the whole league. So
Right.
yeah, there's something to be said about that. Looking into week 2, we want to talk some early thoughts, early leans on some of these games, notable games. I just picked out 5 of the interesting spreads, and just want to see where both of us are at. But yeah, Dallas Jets in week 2 is definitely a notable one now. Dallas at home, 8.5-point favorites, definitely has ballooned up into Dallas's favor there. But covering a spread this big is tough to do in the NFL. But we just saw Dallas blow out the Giants, so there's that part of it as well. But both instances, I think, what do you think about this Cowboys Jets? Do you think they can hold it close enough to cover here?
Man, this one I'm not sure, but I think I would probably venture towards the under in this game. I mean, they just did what they did to Josh Allen. I had a tweet last night. We don't talk about Josh Allen's interceptions like we talk about Dak Prescott, because Dak Prescott led the league in interceptions last year. He's just as likely to turn the football over this week and maybe set up the Jets into some good field position here to score some points, kick a field goal. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if 8.5 is too much, because we could see the Dallas defense do exactly what they did last week too: turn the ball over, get some pick sixes, and then put them in some positions to score short field. If I had like an immediate lead right now, I think the under 40.5 feels better. Like, I think we could just see a lot of games where it's 20-16, finals in these Jets games. So if that ends up being the case, maybe you want the Jets with the points. 8.5 is a lot of points in the NFL with a really good defense like that.
Yeah, I'm with you leaning towards the under there, because the Cowboys defense was really good against the Giants shaky offensive line in that week 1. I could see them really frustrating Zach Wilson and the Jets offense. But you mentioned, I mean, in that week 1 win, 40-0 win for Dallas, Dak Prescott only threw for 143 yards in the game. And he was just over 50% completion rate too, as well in that. And they leaned on, they leaned on Pollard, they leaned on the run game overall, but it was their defense that really, gave them shorter fields, gave them, the score, the punt, the kickoff, the kick return touchdown, or the block kick touchdown.
Yeah.
So like, there's that whole vibe to it. I do, probably lean towards the under there as well. The other one, a few other games we just want to touch on. We will get to some betting picks for baseball tonight, so keep that in mind as we look towards Tuesday night here. But Bengals Ravens is another huge matchup, because obviously we just saw the Bengals lay an egg basically in week 1. They are favored though here at home against the Ravens. -3.5 is the spread. I find that spread very interesting, because the Ravens, I gave out the Texans as an underdog, against the spread, +10 in week 1. They obviously did not do that, did not cover, but a better offense again in that matchup, with how kind of uneven the Ravens offense looked, wasn't able to fully put it away. And the offense, I think, is still working through some kinks, but a late touchdown or something could have easily covered that spread for the Texans. But obviously a rookie quarterback and kind of obviously a bad offense in general. Yeah. But I expect a bounce back from Burrow. I know you did not do well in the rain in Cleveland, but -3.5, it seems like Vegas is leaning towards the Bengals bouncing back too.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's difficult to project back-to-back bad weeks from an offense that you're expecting to be as explosive as that Cincinnati one is. You also have to look on the fact that, on the road week 1, again, I thought Cleveland could go out there. I think you and I talked about it. I thought Cleveland was able to go out there and win that one. Now, I didn't think it was going to be 24-3, but I thought this was a chance for Cleveland to sort of set the tone for the division, that, they're there to compete and can beat, the Bengals in this one here. But obviously week 2 now just brings sort of a whole different matchup for Cincinnati. The fact that they're going to be the ones at home going up against Baltimore, which their defense looked fine. Their offense looked a little shaky and uncertain with no Mark Andrews there. So I kind of lean with you. I think Cincy could get this one done.
Yeah, and 46.5 over under too for that game. All right, how about the next one here? We're going to Chiefs at Jaguars. Chiefs -3 favorites on the road here. I also find this interesting because of what we just saw from the Chiefs offense and the Chiefs in general at home. They do get Chris Jones back now under contract, so that's a big boost to the defensive side. Travis Kelce, we'll see if he plays this week. Kind of leaning towards not, but I think we'll have to monitor that all the way up to kickoff on Sunday. But the Jaguars get a pretty convincing win, solid win against the Colts, but obviously a lot lesser opponent than what the Chiefs are. So right. Chiefs though -3 favorites on the road here. What do you think about that one?
Yeah, listen, I actually like the Jacksonville Jaguars in this one. Again, I think that Jacksonville went into Indy and kind of did what I expected them to do in that game, and now they're home, and we saw sort of, obviously if Travis Kelce plays, it changes that dynamic a little bit of that game. But if that doesn't end up being the case, if he's out or limited again, we saw the troubles that Chiefs offense had at the wide receiver position. Again, no real star kind of stepping up and making plays, where Calvin Ridley immediately reasserted himself as one of the top wide receivers in football. I fully expected Trevor Lawrence to take that next step this season. Looked good there in week one. Zay Jones made a really nice catch for a touchdown. Christian Kirk and Evan Ingram were out there. Travis Etienne looked good. So for me, getting Jacksonville at home here, I think this one's going to be a race. I would take the over in the points here, but I would also lean Jacksonville as the home dog. They're getting 3 if I had to pick.
I would too. Yeah, I like the Jags as the underdog there. I would also probably lean to the over too. I mean, 51 over under there. You could easily see both teams scoring 30 points to hit that over too. I do find it interesting though, that the Chiefs are favored, and we'll see if the line moves at all. Whether it's in the Jaguars' favor or the Chiefs' favor. If we do get some Travis Kelce news, if he is active, I'm sure it'll move in the Chiefs' favor. So maybe that's like a wait and see on the spread if you want to get more value on the Jaguars. But if you want to jump on it now, you can get +3. Yeah. Not bad. I think me and John both agree on that one. Yeah. All right, the next one here, Seahawks at Lions. Lions obviously coming off that big win against the Chiefs in week 1. 5.5 is the spread. And I bring this one up because I think this line is just a little overreactionary to what the Lions just did. Yeah. Maybe they're trying to, Vegas trying to save people, beg people to take the Lions here to win by at least a touchdown. But I think the Seahawks could definitely make this a game, especially coming off their week 1 loss. Maybe just a little hungry to get back into the win column here.
Can I just take the over in this game? They combined for 93 points last year in this matchup, if you remember. And I just think that this is a spot where both offenses can succeed. We saw the Rams last week, you mentioned against Seattle, with Tutu Atwell and Puka Nacua both going over 100 yards receiving, with Stafford throwing for 300 plus. And even their running game with Kyron Williams and eventually Cam Akers getting it done against Seattle. And then the Lions on the other side, well, they certainly held their own. A lot of that was more so Kansas City's inability to execute, right? Yeah. We saw Tony drop those balls. Sky Moore had a bunch of drop passes here. So I wouldn't necessarily say that was like a Lions defensive stand there shutting down KC. I think that was more KC shooting themselves in the foot. Now you're having Seattle roll in here, with Mike Evans, with Tyler Lockett, with Jackson Smith and Jigba. Kenneth Walker looked really good. So I don't really know where to go with the spread on this one, but I think the points will be scored. So I'm going to go the over 49 here.
Okay. Yeah, I could back that. I do like the Seahawks to as the underdogs here. I do think they'll be hungry to get back to get a win here. Looking on actually since we posted this, the over under is now down at 47.5, down from 49. So
down 2 points.
Yeah, movement in the other direction.
I'll still take the over, I guess. I don't know. Maybe I'm reading it wrong, but listen, the Lions offense rather, I still think is rather interesting. Amon-Ra St. Brown looked as good as ever, in week 1, so we can just kind of chalk that up. Sam Laporta as a rookie tight end looked really good. Josh Reynolds looked pretty good in terms of production numbers there. Marvin Jones, not so much. But then you heard Dan Campbell basically come out and say, week 1, we wanted to give, Jahmyr Gibbs just a little bit of taste. We'll ramp him up, as the season goes on. Well, okay, at home, week 2 against Seattle could be a ramp-up spot for Jahmyr Gibbs, who in his 25% snap share still was kind of explosive looking, made some big plays, had that 20-yard run. Like, you get him more involved. You saw how good Montgomery is. I don't know. To me, it just feels like points are coming here. I'll take the extra 2 if that ends up being the case. Fine. I like the over 49. I like the over 47 even better.
All right. Whenever Gibbs got the ball, he was looking explosive. I don't know what his like yards per touch was, but it was high. Similar to what we saw from Breece Hall last night.
He tripped himself up too, if I remember, like on one of the plays where I feel like he kicked it out to the outside, and he probably would have beat his man to the end zone there, and he ended up like stumbling and falling down.
That was a touchdown for him. Yeah,
100%. It would have been a touchdown for him had he not tripped himself up. So, because once he gets out there, he's just a burner. So I expect more of that.
That was a bad beat if you had like a Gibbs anytime touchdown prop, or if you had him in fantasy. But like for betting, because then what, 2 plays later or something, Montgomery scores a touchdown.
Listen, every fantasy analyst that goes in on Montgomery deserves the pat on the back. We'll see who wins the race at the end of the year. That was the battle, not the war in week 1. But getting those touchdowns, getting the 20 carries. I mean, Montgomery, as advertised, where he was going in fantasy drafts, paid off huge. I only ended up with 1 share of him this year. It was more in on the Jahmyr Gibbs train. So we'll see what comes of it.
Yeah, I mean, listen, there's going to be games where the Lions are going to be trailing. They were in that game against the Chiefs. They had the benefit of just pounding it with Montgomery and trying to, keep the ball away from the Chiefs offense. But there's going to be games where they're down 2 touchdowns or down a couple scores, and Gibbs is going to be on the field a lot more than Montgomery. So there's still time for your Gibbs calls to come through. All right, the last one for week 2, look ahead lines and early leans here. The Packers against the Falcons. Packers, awesome week 1 win for them on the road in Chicago. Jordan Love looking pretty solid. The Falcons also got a pretty convincing win on their own. Obviously, it was against the Panthers and rookie Bryce Young playing his first game. But I find this spread very interesting. The Packers favored on the road, 1-point favorites right now. But 41 over under as well in this. But I see immediately value in the Falcons. I just think they're being disrespected here as underdogs at home after I think a solid. I know they just played Bryce Young and a Panthers team that's still in rebuild mode, but I feel like this is a little overreaction to what the Packers just did in week 1.
The Bears might be the worst defense in football. So I mean, I think that's definitely an overreaction to it. Again, nothing to take away from what that offense did. They still had to execute and make the plays, and they did against Chicago. But like Aaron Jones taking what was like a 75-yard screen for a touchdown, and then Dobbs had the 2 end zone catches there. Again, great. They had to make the plays, but Chicago's defense came into that into the season with many expecting them to be horrible. Howard Bender had Aaron Jones all over his playbook. I had him in my DFS lineups because that was just like I couldn't miss play for us this week. He had Romeo Doubs in the playbook. Like, we were all in on attacking the Chicago Bears here. So he did not disappoint. But what we talked about going into last week about Atlanta also was the fact that they spent the entire free agency and trade season getting defensive players. They signed a bunch of guys. They traded for Jeff Okudah, who I know is banged up a little bit. But, the reason they were able to go offense in the draft is they just went and signed a bunch of NFL players to play defense for them. Against the Carolina Panthers, they looked pretty decent there. So I'm with you here. I think we have a slight overreaction on Jordan Love and the Packers just based off the matchup they just had here, and you're kind of sleeping on the Falcons a little bit.
Yeah, with how electric Bijan Robinson looked whenever he got the ball, Tyler Algier was still there, scoring twice and being a solid
100% of the red zone snaps or the inside the 5 snaps for Tyler Algier. So. Goal line back Tyler Algier over number 8 overall pick Bijan Robinson. Apparently.
We'll see if that continues the rest of the way. You mentioned the Packers offense, like everyone producing. I'll tell you one guy who didn't, and because I gave out his player prop on Friday, is A.J. Dillon. He had 13 carries, only had 19 rushing yards. Not ideal there.
You might get the opportunity this week if Jones doesn't suit up, but we'll see.
I doubt I go back to him on a Friday show, giving out the player prop after just got burned. But of course, I'll go for 100 yards this week.
Yes, and if he's out, you can give it a look, right? I mean, Jones is out, you got to give it a look because Dillon will be the main guy there. But again, might not be a great spot for him. I think Jamal Williams, not to get too far into the weeds here, I think Jamal Williams is in for a good week when you get to that Friday show. Let Bender know I said so. Jamal Williams rushing prop.
Ooh, okay. Well, let me look at it right now. Let's just pulling up. Well, so that's a Monday night game, right?
Saints, Titans, yeah.
Yeah. So we'll Monday show we'll definitely be talking about that. I don't see any props out right now for that, but I'm sure his rushing yards prop won't be too high. I mean,
Saints Panthers rather, because we just had Algier and Bichon ran all over that defense. So I think there's going to be a good path for Williams there in this one. I'll tell you which one killed me last week. Everybody was down on the total carries props on a lot of these guys. They just week one. I don't know why every running back was set at like 13 and a half carries. So I was just betting the over carries on everybody. And I went 5 of 6. The one I missed was Raheem Mostert. He needed over those 12 and a half carries, I think it was. And I think he only ended up with like 8. It's big sad there. Nobody really behind him. A-Chain was out. It's Alvin Ahmed. They'll run the ball against the Chargers.
Tua was just going to launch passes to Tyreek the whole game.
Did not get there. And then my underdog play, I had Brian Robinson over to the 61 and a half yards. He goes over it. They get a holding penalty, take it back, and then he doesn't get over it again. So,
oh no.
Yeah, that was he ended up finishing with 59 yards. I fell 3 yards shy. That was a painful way to go down in the underdog plays.
Yeah, that was like a middle situation because on Friday's show, Howard gave out
Bender
Brian
had 57
Robinson.
Or something like that.
Yeah, whatever line he got was like 57 and a half.
Yeah, I got it late on underdog at 61 and a half.
Yeah.
Big sad.
By the way, yesterday I gave out a couple props for Dalvin Cook.
Did you do his carries prop?
I did his yards. I did his yards, and it was Breece Hall ripping off long runs instead of Dalvin Cook.
Yeah.
Also, I gave out the under on Stephon Diggs. Obviously, he really showed out last night. That was like
he had over 11 and a half carries for Dalvin Cook yesterday, which he just barely got over. He had 13, but I was in on.
A good call on the carries props because that's one that definitely goes overlooked. But if you think a guy gets, look, it's AJ Dillon. If I went with his carries prop over instead of his rushing yards prop, our producer Adam Bernard saying his Terrell Bernard tackles prop hit too. Good call on that. Yeah, the middle linebacker for the Bills. He picked that prop and that hit.
Yeah, I never know how to gauge the defensive player props. I don't look into the defensive stats enough to figure out the tackles. So
yeah,
I'll do team sacks. Last year I was just betting Dallas team sacks whenever the line was available. It was usually at 3.5, and I was like, yeah, we'll just go over 3.5 team sacks. Because Mike Parsons gonna do that by himself. So let's just run it. So.
All right, so those are some week 2 look ahead lines and then early leans from us for Sunday's games. Obviously, on Thursday night we got the Vikings and Eagles, so we'll be giving out some picks for that game, and then Friday's show will be a lot of week 1 bets, best bets for and player props for all of Sunday's games. So definitely come back for those. Let's dive into some baseball picks for tonight because we got a bunch of games and. By the way, if you haven't already, with the everything that we got going on at Fantasy Alarm in terms of week 1 reactions, week 2 waiver wire stuff, definitely jump on the 7-day free trial for Fantasy Alarm's All Pro subscription. Get all of your week 1 reaction, week 2 DFS content. I know John's got his QB coach up and ready for week 2. Betting picks later in the week as well, but. Go to fantasyalarm.com/NFL. Jump on the 7-day free trial for the All Pro subscription. All right, let's talk some baseball picks because we got a bunch of games, just a couple afternoon action going on. So what's your best bet tonight?
We're gonna go Teoscar Hernandez over 1.5 hits, runs, and RBIs here. Big fan of Seattle tonight and the matchup that they have this evening. And we know that team, Teoscar right now, riding hot with it. get another lefty on the mound as well, and Patrick Sandoval for them to go up and target against here. So give me the Teoscar hits, runs, and RBIs in the middle of that Seattle lineup.
Yeah, good call in there. I looked at his and Julio Rodriguez's props tonight because why not for Julio? But yeah, I think they should get to
best case scenario is Julio doubles and Teoscar singles them in, and we're done in the first inning, right? So
there you go. Yeah, it's always good when you get like a done in the first.
Just no sweat me, please. Just let me get it over with,
Yeah. All right, my best bet going the Orioles team total over 5.5. They got Wainwright tonight, and they're at home. But Wainwright, I mean, listen, I give him credit for going out there, just stomaching some of these bad outings, and he keeps doing it because they leave him in the game, even though when he's given up a bunch of runs, he allowed 6 runs again his last start. He's now allowed 6+ runs in 4 of his last 6 outings. Has a 10.59 ERA since the start of August. It's just not getting much better. And the Orioles have really good numbers against right-handed pitching. Over the past week, they're 376 WOBA, 222 ISO. Also been a top 5 offense versus righties over the past month. Have scored 11+ runs. They did it last night, and now they've done it in 4 of the last 5 games. They've scored double-digit runs. So this offense is just rolling right now. I don't see how Wainwright slows them down tonight. So give me that. And then I'll just tack on another player prop with that because Wainwright over 3.5 earned runs. You've said it multiple times. Whenever a pitcher, his prop is at 3.5, it's up there for a reason. So I'm going the over here, -115 on DraftKings. Because again, I'm playing the Orioles team total, and why not just pair it, separate bet, but Wainwright to go over his earned runs prop because again, he's on the road this year. He's got an 8.79 ERA. Right. It's just not going well. So give me both those bets.
Yeah, I'm not going to sit here and argue with you. There's been a common pick at us this season, right, of guys that when they're on the mound, you see the matchup and you just kind of go ahead and attack. So no real arguments for me when it comes to those plays tonight.
All right. I'll throw out a couple more here. Give me the Phillies on the first 5 innings money line. I think, Wheeler at home here, he's been pitching really well. I do think he's going to, limit the Braves offense just enough. I know the betting against the Braves offense is very risky and just kind of a cause for concern in general. But Wheeler, he's got a 2.60 ERA since the All-Star break, just pumping out quality starts basically every outing. Against the Braves over the past 3 seasons when he's been with the Phillies here, 1.75 ERA in the past 3 years, which is spanning, 60+ innings, bunch of different starts. Had 8 shutout innings against the Braves earlier this year. So I think all those are encouraging that he's going to do his part. And then the Phillies offense versus left-handed pitching has been a really good, top 5, elite matchup for them. 373 WOBA, 245 ISO over the past month. Similar stats over the past week versus lefties. And Max Fried, he's had a couple of spots where he's been shaky. He's been really good for the Braves, but I do think if there's another matchup where he could have another shaky outing, it's here on the road against the Phillies, which the Phillies offense is rolling. And then pairing it up with just, rinse and repeat. Trey Turner over 1.5 hits, runs, RBIs. The guy homered again yesterday. He's just on fire. He's now got 10 home runs over the past 15 games, especially at home. He's just on a home run streak at home. 24 RBIs, 21 runs scored in the past 15 games. So he's getting over this prop in multiple ways, whether he's hitting, he's scoring, even if he walks, he's coming around to score usually. Been over this prop now in 16 of the last 18 games too. It's just one of those, he might go game where he doesn't do it, but he's bouncing back the next day, and he's hitting 406 against Max Fried over their career. So really good numbers against him. Just give me Trey Turner over the hits, runs, RBIs till it stops cashing.
Yeah, hard to argue there. For me, I like Mike Moustakas over to the 1.5 hits, runs, and RBIs. It's actually plus 115. I know the Angels' offense is something we're not really as high on these days, but we talked about it on the show already. The lefty numbers against Brian Wu are what we're looking to target here. He just gets absolutely demolished by them. So we got the Moose here at plus 115 at the 1.5 hits, runs, and RBIs. We have Kyle Tucker against JP Sears. We've talked about Tucker, even though he's a lefty, has hit lefties tremendously well this year.
Yeah.
He's at 1.5 hits, runs, and RBIs. Love the Astros team total today, and I think just the Astros in general after yesterday, where Ken Waldichuk goes out there and throws 6 no-hit innings in relief. Didn't see that coming down the pipe, so I think they'll get back to it against Sears. And then correlating with that one, Justin Verlander, 18.5 outs is at plus 145 today. That one feels interesting to get the plus 145. He had 7 innings pitched in his last start. Doesn't seem too hard for him to go get 6 1/3 tonight to get the 17 outs is all we need to cash this one against the A's. I mean, at home, like a lot of great things leaning towards Verlander here. You're getting 140 plus 145 on the outs.
Well, listen, I might disagree on this one slightly because I will back your Kyle Tucker one because I'm going. And you mentioned you might like the Astros team total. I like the full game over in the A's Astros. For reasons you mentioned, Sears against this Astros lineup that's just hammering left-handed pitching, has been all year, has not slowed down against lefties over the past couple weeks. And yeah, the Astros just got shut out last night. I'm expecting them to bounce back. Only the 6th time this whole season that they've been shut out, the Astros. So bank on a bounce back from them here. Elite matchup against lefties, and Sears, last time he faced the Astros, he gave up 5 runs in this matchup. But the other side of it, I do think the A is going to be a little feisty against Verlander because Verlander, he actually hasn't been, he might go the innings, okay? So I'll give you that. But I do think the A's, because Verlander hasn't been as dominant as you might think. He's had some good outings since he's been traded to the Astros, but he's got a 4.55 FIP since he's joined the Astros at the deadline, 3.43 ERA too in this span. Again, he's had some solid outings, but he did give up 6 runs to the Yankees recently, gave up 5 runs to the Marlins as well. And Oakland, I didn't really realize this till I dug into it, but sneaky, top 10 offense against right-handed pitching over the past week. 366 WOBA and a 250 ISO against right-handers over the past week. So I think they could, get a couple runs off of Verlander, but I do think that the Astros side is definitely the one I like more. I do like your Astros team total that you offered there, but give me the full game over here, 8.5.
Yeah, I think runs will be scored here. So if you want, I like them. I like the Astros. If you like the game, that works. And I still think even if Verlander gives up a couple of runs, the 7 innings can still be in play here. So as long as he doesn't get shelled, I guess that's what we don't need 7. We need 6 1/3. As long as he doesn't get shelled, I think 6 1/3 seems pretty reasonable for a guy that they let pitch a lot of pitches there. So.
Listen, if he goes 7 innings and allows 3 runs, I'm good with that because the Astros are banking on hopefully they get 6+ runs on the other side. So. All right, my last pick before we give out some home run calls. Give me the Guardians on the first 5 team total over 1.5 here on DraftKings minus 135. I think that so we got Sean Manaea actually starting a game, traditional starter for the Giants here. He's been working as the bulk reliever, and he's been a lot more effective as like a long reliever for the Giants, but he hasn't started a game since May. And his last start, too, in May, he allowed 8 runs over 2 2/3 innings. He's given up over his last 3 starts, regular starts going back to when he was in the rotation in May and early in the season. He's given up 17 total runs over his last 3 starts. And again, he's got a 7.55 ERA as a starter this year. Much better numbers as a reliever when he's in the bulk reliever role. And I just think even he hasn't actually been sharp lately. He's got a 4.21 ERA since the All-Star break and a 5.46 FIP over the past month, even though when he's come out of the bulk reliever role. So I think They're moving him back to the rotation tonight. I don't know if it's the best move. We'll see. Maybe he turns it back and has a good outing. But I like the Guardians to put up at least 2 runs in the first 5 innings while we have Minaya out there.
Sure.
Guardians, better numbers versus lefties lately than they have all season. 344 WOBA over the past week against left-handed pitching. So I think there's value here in taking the Guardians just to at least score 2 runs in the first 5.
Yeah, not a team we've obviously targeted too much offensively this year.
We've bet against them with strikeout props and with everything else.
But you know what? Listen, Josh Naylor, despite being a lefty, he's hit lefties decently, as you mentioned. They have Jose Ramirez and whatnot. So I can see it happening. Again, Minaya struggled as a starter. So unless he's figured out the kinks, I think that's a doable total there.
I don't think so. He hasn't been like a shutdown guy even as a reliever lately. So, all right. So those are some of our betting picks tonight. Some good games tonight, and that's there's no football tonight. Thursday we got football, but and some college football later in the week as well. But tonight it's just baseball for us. So, all right, let's give out some home run calls for tonight's games. Daily dingers for tonight.
Now that's a dinger.
All right, who you got going deep? Bobby Witt or no?
No, not today. We're going to go Coors Field, so maybe it's cheating a little bit, but you're getting Seiya Suzuki at plus 500 here today, going up against Chris Flexen. We talked about it. Chris Flexen basically giving up a 600 slug and a 400 WOBA to everybody, lefties and righties here. And Seiya hitting 400 with the 744 slug over his last 10 with 2 homers. So give me Suzuki here, plus 500 on the home run. You get, again, Coors Field boost, plus 500 odds on a homer. I'll take it.
Yeah, seriously. A good call there. I'm not throwing out Trey Turner here, even though I am personally betting it because it's plus 450 on DraftKings, but gave out his hits, runs, RBIs. But I am going Juan Soto plus 360 on DraftKings. It's Lance Lynn on the mound for the Dodgers. He gave up 3 more home runs last start. He's now allowed 40 home runs over his 28 starts this season. He's also allowed 8 home runs over his past 3 starts combined. The guy's just back to allowing homers. He had a brief stretch there with the Dodgers where he was kind of looking good, but he's still allowing a bunch of home runs. Has worse numbers against lefties this year, 309 batting average, 587 slug, also allowing a higher home run rate to left-handed hitters. And there's really not many Padres lefties you can really go to in this lineup. I know they just brought in Jurickson Profar, switch hitter, but Juan Soto's the guy, lefty hitter, and he's got better power numbers against righties, 528 slug, 261 ISO in that split this season. Also has better hitting and power numbers at home on the road than at home. And he just homered last night, so I'm looking for him to go back-to-back here. He's got 4 home runs over the last 10 games too. So, yeah, give me Juan Soto.
That was gonna be my play until you took it first. So that was fine. I was in on to use the cover of the playbook. I think it was this morning that I did. So I'm all in on Soto. But Seiya for me is a good combo there. The plus 500.
Well, anytime you can get plus 500 odds in Coors Field.
In Coors for a guy that hits for power. So I'm good. Yeah.
Go for it. All right. So those are our betting picks and our home run calls for tonight's slate. John will be coming right back at 5 p.m. Eastern doing the MLB DFS live show with Colby Conway. So stay tuned here on the Bettor Sports Network. And we got the Alarm Fantasy Baseball podcast coming up at 6 p.m. Eastern. Matt Sells and Colby Conway. Then 7 p.m. Eastern, the Tour Junkies with David Barnett and Pat Perry. We will be back tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern every day here on Bettor Sports Network. Appreciate everyone joining in here. Good luck with all your picks. Let's get some wins tonight, John, and we'll see how we do tomorrow. But good luck with everyone's picks tonight, and we'll catch you guys later.
Bettor Sports Betting on the Bettor Sports Network.